You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! Hosing! Score! To Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
52.1 seconds to go. Do you love it, Niagara?
Welcome into another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family and all four of their great Niagara region locations. Brandon Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you for the week in review for the Niagara IceDogs as they come off a big 4-game week. And they played a lot of games as of late. Started off great and kind of floundered the last couple of games here. We'll get into that. Glad to have Cam back on the show. He's been away for a little bit here, so I was doing the game recap solo for a bit, but happy to have him back on the show to discuss the last stretch of games here for the Niagara IceDogs. We'll get into the lines. We'll get into Ryan Robrick's 16-year-old record that he's currently tied with right now, and we'll get some clarification on the actual records that we've been talking about here on the show for the last little bit. We'll also get the player stats from the last week, the team stats from the last week, and we'll kind of look ahead to where they stand when it comes to the playoff race and look ahead to their upcoming games this week. So with that said, guys, make sure to follow the podcast on X at Dog Pound Podcast. Thank you to those today watching us and our glorious faces here on YouTube on the video version. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell if you enjoy the video versions of our podcast and all the content that we release on our YouTube channel. And thank you to those listening today in on-demand audio on your favorite audio platform. So, Cam, where do you want to begin here? Because the IceDogs had a good start to the week. 2 wins, that big win in Erie, which was a national televised game in the United States on NHL Network, and they came away with a big win there against the Erie Otters, and then came away with the OT winner against the Oshawa Generals on Friday. But then the last 2 days, back-to-back 2 afternoon games against the Brantford Bulldogs, who they can continue to have problems with, and now 23 straight losing to that franchise. And then the rematch in Oshawa yesterday and Family Day was not kind to the Niagara IceDogs. So where do you want to kind of start?
Well, let's start with the positive. I was actually upset about not being able to attend the Oshawa game on the Saturday, I believe, on the 16th. It looked like it was an absolutely packed house. I believe it was, Friday, sellout. It just looked like it was a lot of fun. The big overtime win, which is always huge. And I think that the start of the weekend, you got some hope. I looked after the Oshawa game when they won in overtime, and they were 5 points back of a playoff spot, which was huge. Obviously, the fact that they can, it's within reach. It's so crazy that after all that we've seen throughout this season, the losing streaks and the trade deadline coming and going and everything like that, and they're still somehow right there. Like it's nuts. We talked about them playing meaningful games later in the year, and that would be a massive bump for this season. That should have been the goal, and they've already eclipsed last year's point total by 6 points. So they've still got 13 games to go. They've played 55, so I believe 13 games to go there with the regular season in team. So they're obviously going to smash that. But the fact that they're only 6 points back of a playoff spot is pretty crazy to me. Obviously, the final 2 games of Brantford, man, it's frustrating. You see like that. You see like teams, just certain franchises, like they stumble, and it's crazy because like it's not the same personnel at all. Just whatever. I don't know if it's bad voodoo, what it is. But they just continue to struggle against Brantford. And then the Oshawa one had to expect that Oshawa is a very talented team going to be in the playoffs, and obviously getting kind of smacked in the mouth and the overtime win, that they would come out hot, and at the end of a busy week of games, obviously kind of ran out of gas there. So still a good week for the IceDogs. I think the fact that they are currently 6 points back of a playoff spot is impressive, given everything the team's gone through so far. And I'm excited to see the rest of the season play out, because it's not over. Like, technically, there's the playoffs are still in play somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, with everything they've gone through with the lineups and trades, and we still can't see a full lineup with 12 forwards and 6D, and they're still finding ways to produce and get points. And we're going to hear from head coach Ben Boudreau as well during the episode, and he was pretty brutally honest about the way that his team played in Oshawa, and I think that kind of put a sour taste in the head coach's mouth. And he talked about some positives from the first two games, but definitely not the way you want to end a week. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, they did pick up 4 of a possible 8 points, and those wins against Erie and the overtime winner against Oshawa, I think were really fun wins, and the one on Friday night, that was as close as it felt to what it was like when the IceDogs were making the playoffs. It was a sold-out barn for country night on that Friday, and it was just an electric atmosphere there, and it really felt like a playoff game. So it was just great to kind of have that, get a taste of that again. And when things start to turn around for the IceDogs here, in the near future here, hopefully as soon as next year, or even if they're able to sneak in the playoffs this year, playoff games in Niagara are just so much fun to watch and so much fun to be there for when everybody's there, and it's getting behind this team again as the region's team. It's just so fun. But again, they're going through some tough sledding right now, as the thumbnail says today on the YouTube version. But as we look at a little bit about the team and where they've kind of come, I mean, we look at Ryan Roberk. We'll kind of start with that. Cam, I think, is a good place to start, because he tied Akil Thomas and excuse me, Kevin He's 16-year-old record for goals as a 16-year-old. So I got that graphic up on the screen again. It's not the rookie goal record for the IceDogs, and we've got some clarification on that to what the actual record is. And it is actually 23. So Ryan would need 24 to be the outright goal leader as a rookie for the Niagara IceDogs. So he did tie Akil Thomas and Kevin He as a 16-year-old this week, which was great, and I'll kind of let you talk about that. But the actual record is Chris D'Souza and Marco Insam with 23 goals respectively. Insam was a 19-year-old rookie, and Chris D'Souza was a 16-year-old turning 17. So that's kind of where the discrepancy has been with what the actual record is, and that's kind of where we're at with the clarification there.
Yeah, a little bit of it's always tough when you have a franchise that's changed a little bit and gone from Mississauga to Niagara. So there was a little bit of confusion in that. We did our due diligence and went back and took a look through all the years to make sure. But yeah, it does look like 24 is the magic number that's the rookie record. And it's well within reach for Roberk. I think that, like I mentioned all year round, that at least this year compared to last year, there's just hope. And whether it be Kevin, who is going to be more than likely going to be drafted this year, which would be huge. It would be an absolute stunner if he wasn't. And then you have Roberk, and I'm very interested to see how high he is projected, because if he's going to lead the OHL among 16-year-old rookies going into his draft year, like I'm again, he has the kind of pedigree being a second overall. He was I didn't realize how young he was too. We looked up his birthday for when we were looking at the rookie record. He was 15 when he came into training camp. He didn't turn 16 until right at the end of September. So just really impressive for him. And I think that him specifically just, again, gives some more hope. And the fact that, things are finally starting to turn around here. It isn't just, making trades and different players and seeing what sticks and everything like that. We finally have a couple players now that are going to be around for a couple years. And if all breaks right, we're going to be right back in the playoff mix as early as next season.
The updated lineup as far as what we saw in Oshawa the other day on Family Day. Ryan Roberg was on the top line with Alex Asadorian, who got a bump for having a pretty solid week there, leading the IceDogs in points, which we'll get into with our kind of stat wrap-up there. Mike Levin was on the top line with Asadorian and Roberg. Then you had Kevin He, Gavin Bryan, and Matthew Paris. Evan Klein, Ethan Zada, Ivan Galyanov, Andrew Vermeulen, Mason Ray, and William Stewart. So it was good to see 12 forwards up there. And then on the defensive side, you had Federico and Van Netten, Chanowski, and Podrekar with Frolov as the fifth D. Still no update on Andrew Wysick and kind of his status for the rest of the season. In net, Owen Flores and Charlie Robertson. Flores started 3 of the 4 games, and Michael Podolou still on the shelf. So, Cam, what were your thoughts about the kind of lineup that Ben Boudreau was able to roll out?
Well, now that we're starting to see that Roberg is definitely hitting his stride offensively, that allows to split up Kevin and him. Both are clearly shooters. I mean, we talked about this in the last time we did a recap. Kevin was leading the OHL in shots, was he not? Or was close to it?
He was leading it.
Yeah, leading the OHL in shots. And Roberg was leading rookies by like a solid 50 shots on goal. So clearly they're both shooters. And, I think that while they're both very talented as well as just playmakers in general, I think that it allows the flexibility of separating them. So now you've got 2 lines that have a shooter that as long as you get the puck to them, you've got a shot at a goal every time they're on the ice, which is huge. And I think going into next year, that's going to be massive as well because, they're only going to get better, you would think. So also, obviously, having 12 forwards is great. Defense is obviously going to be the subject of need going into the offseason. We lose Sobolev and Bronson Ride. Obviously, that's massive. But Sobolev an overager, so he would be gone no matter what. I think that's probably where the focus of management's got to put, whether it's the draft picks. We've talked about this. I think that they're still in a spot where they need to take best available, regardless of position. But going after some of the maybe an overage or 2 defensemen to help out the other guys is going to be is going to go a long way here. But I'm so excited for the rest of this year too as well, because I think that the team has just not had the 5-game win streak. That's all they're missing. Like they've won a couple in a row, and then they'll lose a bunch and everything like that. But if they can just string together 4 or 5 wins in this next, I think they have 13 games remaining. There's a real shot. They played Barrie twice and Peterborough once, if memory serves. And that just allows them. Peterborough is struggling. I believe they have the least amount of goals in the OHL. And Barrie has had a tough time as well too. 6 points back. Obviously, it's going to be pretty tough. But if they can get into late March and still not be mathematically eliminated, that's just awesome. I think that it's even if they can't make the playoffs, I think it's big for the team to play meaningful games, just for next year. So, and also honestly, I think they owe it to Federico. I like honestly, when you think back, he chose to come here. Hometown didn't, regardless of the status of the team and the potential chance that they're not going to be a playoff team in his final year. I think that that's something that you can rally around. And they finally have some stability with Gavin Bryan as a captain. And you guys are going to hear it. Ben Boudreau he does not mince words, and he is going to hold them accountable and make sure that there is no coasting till the end. So I'm excited as a fan of the team and really curious to see how things go. I mean, knock on wood, barring an injury, Ryan Roberg is more than likely going to break the rookie scoring record for the IceDogs. I think that's just huge. Like we talked about in the last time we did one of these, the IceDogs getting an NHL drafted prospect, which they haven't had. We talked about this because they drafted Gushkin after he was drafted. He was a European import after he was drafted by the Sharks, correct?
Yes.
I believe. It was very close, something along those lines.
He never played for the IceDogs before he was drafted.
Exactly, right? So it's not like he was and so that before that, I think it's Akil, right?
It's Tomasino.
Tomasino, sorry. And that was what, 19?
Yep, first rounder by the Predators.
Yeah, 19. So we're talking like 5 years now without an NHL drafted prospect. And, obviously everything we went through with Dickinson not reporting and things like that, there's always this cloud over the franchise. And not just from like a fan standpoint or management standpoint, anything like that, from a player standpoint, right? Like you want to, when you get drafted, know that they're going to do everything they can to give you the best shot and spotlight to continue your professional career. And I think that this is the start of that. I think, and I'm really excited for it. And I'm happy with how the team's performed so far.
Look at the standings. I mean, you talked about it a little bit there. 6 points back of Barrie. Barrie has 3 games in hand, but the IceDogs do play Barrie twice and Peterborough once. They did get out of the basement in the overall standings with the Windsor Spitfires before Windsor decided to go and beat the Sioux Greyhounds, and that kind of leapfrogged them back there. But the IceDogs are, like you said, playing meaningful games down the stretch is the most important thing for this team and for Ben Boudreau and the development of the young group. It would be great for them to get in, but the fact that even if they're in like still mathematical contention in the last week of the season, like to me that's a win from where they were last year. They were 30 points away from being a playoff team last year, and you couldn't expect them to make up that much ground in one season, because like you said, that's just that you can't make up that much ground in one season. It's almost unprecedented. But for them to be here right now at this point, I understand people, they're in last place. I get it, and the last 2 games haven't been good. So not going to sit here and sugarcoat that like Ben Boudreau will say. There are clearly things that they need to work on, and even going into next year, things that they have to address. But they're 6 points out right now. Barrie twice, coming up in a couple of weeks. So they're right there. And if they can string together a few wins, like you said, go on like a 4 or 5 game heater, they could be right there. And we saw glimpses of it with the first 2 games of this 4-game week with Erie and Oshawa. We saw them kind of get that spark, and they kind of carried that momentum into that second game against Oshawa and was able to kind of take them down in overtime. And then obviously what happened the last couple of games is just part of the growing pains of a young roster and going through what it takes to win.
No, I absolutely. And again, obviously them being in last place is you can't really get around that. But like we said, just playing meaningful games late in the year is going to be massive for the team. And it's still not over. Like it is a couple, if they go on a 3-game win streak, and that's obviously a tall task because they are going to be playing a lot of good teams. But a lot of those teams, we see the backup goalie. They don't, like, a lot of the times, a lot of the top end teams are going to be resting their starters. They're going to play Mississauga, and maybe we avoid Leanders. Not that their backup is much more a slouch by any stretch of the imagination, but just I think that goes a long way. And you mentioned like 30 points away, like that's not even, they weren't even in the same league last year, and now like it's a much more respectable gap. And I think that it'll be real fun to watch them down the rest of the way, and it's going to be a fun 13 games.
Before we hit to our break, let's go over the stats from this week. Quickly, player stats and overall stats for the team. In the 4 games that they did play, they scored 11 goals. They scored 10 in the first 2, and then only 1 in the final 2 against Brantford and the Oshawa game on Family Day. They gave up 15 goals, but only 4 in the first 2, and then 11 in the second. So it was really a tale of 2 weeks, in my opinion, between the first 2 and then the last 2. Shots on net, they had 127 for, 184 against. Power play was abysmal, 0 for 13 on the man advantage, and Ben Boudreau will talk about that a little later on. The penalty kill was pretty decent, though, 11 to 15. They gave up a few to Brantford, but Brantford had 7 power plays in that game, and I'll leave it at that. But regardless, 11 to 15 on the penalty kill. As far as the player stats go, Alex Asadorian led the way, as I mentioned at the open, 5 points this week, 2 goals, 3 assists. Gavin Bryant had that hat trick in Erie, and then was held off the score sheet the rest of the week. Ryan Robrick scored the 2 goals to get to tie Akil Thomas and Kevin He with that 16-year-old goal record. He's up to 21 now, but he scored 2 goals this week. Ivan Galyanov had 2 points, and Kevin He had a goal and 2 assists. Also, shout out to Ryan Van Detten, who had a pair of assists as well. So, from that, Cam, and Owen Flores stopped 136 of 145 shots for a .934 save percentage, and Charlie Robertson started the game in Oshawa, stopping 33 of 39, and a few of those goals were not his fault, to say the least. So, what stands out to you most there about the team stats and the player stats?
Well, honestly, it's Gavin Bryant seems to look a little bit different after getting the C offensively, with the hat trick there, but he's really been a driver offensively, and it might just be the whole pride to get a boost, not just because you're now leading the team and you've got the C, but he just lit a fire under him, it appears. I think the most exciting thing I am for next year is to watch Owen Flores in his overage year. And I hope that we get off to enough of a start where we hold on to him. Like that would be, because we've talked about this before. I don't want to say we owe him a playoff run, but he has been fantastic for his tenure as an Ice Dog. And the 2 seasons that he's been one has not been kind to any goaltender in terms of their stats, but he somehow finds a way. Like he keeps getting invited to NHL camps, and it's not a shocker to see that. But great job again by Robrick to tie the record. I wanted to mention this in the last we were talking before, is that I would love for someone who's smarter than us about when it comes to scouting to be like, where does this class from the Ice Dogs rank among the overall OHL? Because we've had 4 16-year-olds in the lineup pretty much from start to finish. And Robrick's about to break the all-time rookie record for Ice Dogs. He's already broke the 16-year-old one. You've got Zotto, who's becoming a much better defensive player. Frolov hasn't missed a beat and has been great for the most part defensively. And Gallianov has been a real engine. It strikes me as stunning to see that 4 16-year-olds have had an impact. And that just goes to, shout out to the scouting staff for the Ice Dogs, because one more year, if they have a year where it's anything close to that, let's say we get a lottery pick, we don't make the playoffs and we end up with, maybe first overall, right? We're still ways away from knowing kind of who would be in the mix for that. But still, I think they're not going to have 2 first-round picks. They'll only have 1. But if they can have a 2 or 3 players hit like they did this year, we're looking at a real strong team where it's not just about just getting in; it's being in 4th and 5th, and it's exciting. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to them in that, because we've talked about it quite a bit. But I would love for an OHL scout or someone, even in an NHL scout to be like, that's impressive, because I don't think they get enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, we had Adam Henrich on the show at their monthly wrap-up last month, and he talked about what he saw from a couple of those players, and we know that how important it was for them to hit on those guys, and they're going to need to hit on another draft class here, like you said, to really, restock the pipeline here of making this into a competitive franchise year in and year out that has NHL drafted talent on it, because we've talked about it on the past of how important it's going to be for Kevin He to break that glass ceiling for the Ice Dogs that has kind of been there since 2019, and for Ryan to continue to push that open the year after. But we're going to need to have some other players that are looked at, and like you mentioned, having some scouts in the building will hopefully be a big thing when they're there watching some of those guys that do get drafted, that that there is other talent that's worth looking at here with the Ice Dogs that could potentially become pro hockey players.
Well, that's the thing. I think that something that isn't talked about is that when you're in this stage of the franchise, and this happens in the OHL to every team, they go through the 3-year windows, and sometimes the downward spin of that doesn't last long. Like London, for example, they just don't miss ever. But we'll see even Windsor. So Windsor's having a terrible season. In retrospective to last year, where they looked like they might win the OHL championship and obviously got knocked out in the first round, but they went all in, right? The thing is that they're going to have 2 players drafted probably in the first round of the NHL in Greentree and the second one's escaping me.
Cristoforo.
Yes. And who are very highly ranked in this year's NHL draft, right? That isn't a luxury the Ice Dogs have this year. Kevin is going to get drafted, but it more than likely won't be in the first or second round. So that means that every time that the Ice Dogs, because you can't trade a first round pick, you've got a 1 in 20 shot of really getting someone that player can't miss, because it doesn't make the prior year a waste, but it makes it very difficult when your first round doesn't misses. So guys like Robrick and Zada, they've got so much more pressure on them because, I'm sure that it's not hung on them, but that's the reality of the situation. If they miss on a first that's high when they have these picks, Henrich talked about it when we were talking to him, you can't miss on these because those, you don't know how often you're going to get a top 4 pick in the OHL, a lottery pick, right? So again, it's a lot of stress in this summer, because this summer, more than last year, is a real one where the Ice Dogs are not going to be the afterthought in the Eastern Conference anymore. We've heard it on other OHL podcasts. It will not be that, specifically from the coach down. He will not allow it. So it's going to be a very intense, draft in that aspect, because whoever we get has got to come in and really fill a need that the IceDogs have. So again, I just wanted to give that quick shout out to the scouting staff, because I've only been following the OHL like this for this season, right? Prior years I was just a fan. So I can't see many times that 4 16-year-olds come in and have an impact where they would make the roster of other OHL teams. That's what I kind of went with this. It's not that they're just impact for the IceDogs. Like Galliano and Frolov, as well as Zada and Robrick, are probably going to make the majority of OHL teams, and that's impressive to do so. And
they hit on Kevin He as a second rounder. I mean, that is
if they didn't have Kevin. Man, that's scary to think about, because yeah, you're right. If they did not hit on Kevin this season and going forward, we're looking at waiting till next year till Robrick, has a chance to get in there. And I don't know. That's scary to think about.
Yeah, Kevin He was a second round pick, so we talk about the pressure on him if he would have been a first round pick. But obviously,
I think we
know
saw
what happened
it too.
With that.
I think we saw it the first 15 games of the season. He did not look like himself. He looked like he was trying to go 1-on-4 every shift. Yep. And it wasn't until, maybe the coaching change. That kind of seems to be, if you go back and look at his stats, like that's where the change happens. But yeah, those guys at the top end of a team that where like they can't have a decline. The same thing as Rober going to next year. While he had a great rookie season, he can't drop in points, for example. He's got to really, elevate even further, which I think he will. So
we're going to have more after our break. We're going to hear from head coach Ben Boudreau about the week, and we'll kind of get an updated look on the player stats, where everybody stands, and look ahead to the upcoming games this week. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the price of cable, you can get Fubo TV and watch the live sports and TV you love. Try free at FuboTV.com.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance, and you can check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
This is Kevin Heath.
This is Ethan Zader.
It's Owen Flores. You're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast,
the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to part 2 of our weekend wrap-up here on the Dog Pound Podcast. Brandon Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you. Guys, if you're enjoying the video version of the podcast, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell for all updates on our video versions that get released here on the network. And as well, thank you to those today listening in on demand on your favorite audio platform. Make sure to give us a follow at Dog Pound Podcast for all of our updated IceDogs content on there. As well, we're available on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're trying to post more smaller videos and content on there for you as well. Guys, our official show sponsor, Global Pet Foods, make sure to check them out on their Seniors Day. That is the last Tuesday of every month. Save 15% on your purchase the last Tuesday of every month at all 4 of their great Niagara region locations at Global Pet Foods. You just have to show your birth certificate or some sort of identification. 15% off your entire purchase. So with that said, Cam, let's look at the updated player stats for the IceDogs coming out of this busy week, and busy couple of weeks, I should say, because you think about it, they had the 3-3 in North Bay, Sudbury, and Sioux, and then right after that, they come home, and then they have to start off the week on a Wednesday in Erie, and then play Friday, play Sunday, and Monday for the family day. So they've been on a pretty tough stretch of games here. So for them, I'm sure they're happy to have an off day here and not play again until Friday in Mississauga.
Well, yeah, they played the most. They're tied for the most amount of games played in the OHL. There's some teams that have, like Barry's only played 52, for example. So a pretty busy stretch here for them now, or they just got out of. So nice to see them get a little bit of a break. And it's tough because every game is extremely important. This next, like the Mississauga and Kingston game, they have a hard time scoring against Mississauga, and Kingston, while statistically not that powerful of a team when you look at the overall standings, they'd be in the bottom portion of it, but they just put up a 10 spot, I believe, right? So they are a very dominant game against the IceDogs the last time they played. So they have beaten them before. One of their most memorable wins was against Kingston earlier on in the season, and it's going to be huge. It's just getting to, I think the key is getting to Barrie on March 2nd within 5 points. I think if they can get within 5 points of Barrie that game and win that game in regulation, they're within 3. And then, they play Barrie a little bit later on in the year. But we talk about this all the time. Like, they're going to have a stretch where they win 4 games in a row. Like, I don't see how they can make the playoffs by going 2 wins, 4 losses, to 1 win, 3 losses. Like, at some point they have to have a stop, and again, we'll see. But as long as they can keep it close, and it'll be interesting because I don't know if they'll be mathematically eliminated by the time that they get to Barrie on March 17th, which would be the 4th last game of the season. Because that's 4 points in the standings, so that alleviates them. That keeps them within an arm's reach, because those are the bottom teams. Like Kingston has got enough of a stretch now where they're 9 points up on Barrie. So it's going to be Barrie, Peterborough, and the IceDogs within 6 points of each other. And they've all been struggling, in terms of the past 10. In fact, the IceDogs have been the best at 4-5-1. Peterborough's 1-8-1, and Barrie's 3-5-2. So Niagara's been the best of those 3 teams. If they can just keep it close, and again, get to the final games of the season. That game on March 17th is at home too, which I think would be probably the biggest IceDogs game since the Akil Thomas era of the IceDogs.
Yeah, I mean, it really would be, because it would, playoffs would just be huge for this organization to get back to that level. And again, it's really difficult when there's only 20 teams and four miss out to miss it for 4 consecutive seasons, which is what the IceDogs have done.
It's not acceptable, and I think they know that, right? The management knows that.
And the coaching staff, and Ben Boudreau is not happy with, not being in the playoffs. So he's doing it all that he can to make sure that this team is continuing to develop and learning how to play the right way that he wants this team to play with the bite and the grit, and making sure that they're competing on every single night. And I think that's why he was so disappointed with the last two nights, because he saw, what they did in Erie and then the first game against Oshawa, and that was, a good snapshot of what he wants this team to play. And then they kind of reverted back to some of their old bad habits and against the Brantford Bulldogs, and then in Oshawa the last couple of games. So again, you're starting to see the light flash through of what this team can really be. It's just they have to get through the other part of it, that they're still treading through the snow here.
I mean, what we've heard it all season, and especially from Ben, the power play been a focus. They are last in the league at 10.3% on the power play. And that's obviously abysmal in the grand scheme of things, but that's 6% behind the next lowest team.
Yep.
6% in the over the course of a season is probably like 3 or 4 wins, right? Like if they can bury on the power play. And if that's something that will regress to the means. I don't think that they can, next year with Roberk being a potential 30-goal scorer, Kevin is more than likely going to hit 30. I just don't see how it's even possible to only score on 10% of their power plays next year. But for the rest of this season as well, that would be a massive bump if they can figure that out. Because on the penalty kill, they're actually not bad. They're middle of the pack on the penalty kill. So it's not like that they're giving up a ton on the penalty kill, and then that's not the difference. It's just they can't score on the power play. And we heard from him, he putting some of the bottom 6 into the power play. The guys, you wouldn't see it, and they just generate chaos. And I think that that's what they've got to do. I don't know if they're in a situation yet where I still think that they're lacking. I've said this all season long. I think that a defenseman that can shoot hard and accurately would completely change the dynamic. And we saw it from Sobolev a little bit as the season got along, and a little bit from Bronson Rye, but more often than not, Podrekar and even Wysick and Frolov too. They just look for those seeing eye wristers, right?
And Chanowski.
You look, yeah, exactly. And you look at London, not really fair comp because they have top 5 pick in terms of Dickinson, or top 10 pick, and who already has an NHL caliber slap shot. I don't think that's necessarily what they need. They just need someone who can hammer the puck low and hard. And I think that would dramatically change, because it does look like they are trying to set up plays. And we've seen it once. Off the top of my head, we have seen it once, and it didn't even go in. But the bumper play to Kevin, and that was a month ago. And so I just don't know, simplify it and just shoot. And, it's tough, but I think that one change you're going to see next year be the reason why the IceDogs are not out on the outside looking in.
And we'll look at the player stats real quick before we get to head coach Ben Boudreau's weekend wrap-up to end the show here. Kevin He leading the way with 47 points in the 55 games. Again, a career high in goals with 27, and good to see him come out of that scary play against Oshawa where Dylan Rubrick kind of got him in the numbers and hit him from behind. He left for a little bit, did come back, was a little bit shaken up this weekend, but he played through it, and he just wants to continue to play for this team and be the offensive catalyst that they need. 245 shots on net, continuing to lead the OHL in that department. Gavin Bryant, like you mentioned, since taking over the captain, has really elevated his play. He was the OHL player of the week last week, and is quietly, flying under the radar with the way that Kevin and Ryan have been getting all the attention. But I don't think we're giving enough attention to the captain, Gavin Bryant, because he's really, he's their top face-off man, and he's potting in, those timely goals. He's doing all the dirty work down low, trying to set up plays, in behind the net there in Gretzky's office, if you will. The way that he's kind of able to shift the puck down there and try to create time and space for his line mates there. And he's got 40 points in 49 games, and it has really been on a tear as of late in the last couple of weeks. And then Ryan, we talk about him obviously all the time. 50 games played, 21 goals, 37 points. So if he would have played all those games that he didn't miss from the U16s, or U17s, I should say, he'd probably be up there in the over 40 point range. And Mike Levin, 30 points and 47. So and Alex Asadorian had a good week after he's got 23 points in only 34 games. So that's another thing too, is we haven't seen Asadorian all season long, and he's treading away here. He's only played 34 games and he's got 23 points. So if you accumulate that up to like a 55 games of what Kevin He has, he's third on the team in points right now.
Yeah, I mean, even last year, he had 33 points in 34 games at the back half of last season, but those were 34 games in a row, right? He didn't miss any time last year, and I think that's been the big thing for Asadorian. He's had stretches where he's missed like 5 to 10 games in a row. Like, he can't ever get like a 2-month span where he's just healthy.
Well, that he also got suspended for a couple of games. That didn't help. Yeah,
exactly. So like, it seems like it's been a constant battle for him all year. And I think that going into next year, he is going to be a major part of why the team offensively is just better, because we saw it last year, 33 points in 34 games on the worst team that the IceDogs have ever had, is crazy when you think about it. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like that's wild to me. I didn't realize how good him, Kevin, and Zach were during that stretch. Now he was also a -26, so it just kind of goes to show how crazy like that last season was. But yeah, I think that he is going to be a big part of next year, and he wants to be out there too. Like, he's a competitor. He is one of my favorite like non-offensive players to watch, because while he is pretty good offensively, I always like the players that when you see on the back check and, they realize they run out of gas, so they just kind of coast and they're like, okay, Flores or Robinson, you got to make a save here and then I'll get to him. He's someone whose legs don't stop moving. Same with Kevin and same with Galliano. Those are the three on the team that kind of have that just nonstop. It's like they get angry when they can't get the puck. That's like the best way I can describe it. And that's not to say everyone else takes breaks off and things like that. There's just like that. They use their energy. Robrick is very good at knowing when to use his energy, because in the defensive zone, he's a little tentative, doesn't like, you know what I mean? He doesn't, a little bit passive defensively, and most of the time he's playing wing, so it kind of makes sense. But then on the forecheck, when it's like when it's just him on the forecheck, and he's so good with his stick, and then the second that there's a breakout or anything offensively, the gas tank's empty, right? And I think that on the defensive side of things, like it's fun to watch Asadorian, because I think it rubs off on guys like Galliano. They're just ultra competitive. Like, they, again, like I said, like they get the puck stripped or they lose the puck, they get angry that they lost it, and that's a very, very good personality trait to have on a hockey team.
And no Mike Podolou too, because we were so excited about him at the first half of the year and what he was. He played those first couple of games. You saw him take a huge step with his skating, and he would just add so much more depth to this center ice position, which you think about it, you have Bryant, you have Podolou, you have Asadorian, you have Robrick and Zada that can move in and out of center if you really wanted to. So I think not having Mike Podolou in this lineup has kind of, changed things as well. And, it's really unfortunate that he has, going through what he's going through, with on the injury side of things. So it's, if they had him in the lineup, and I talked about this last week, I would love to have seen what this fully cogged lineup would have been for Ben Boudreau this year.
Yeah, like he hasn't been a crazy offensive player in his career, and he had 13 points in 24 games, but he started on the third line, and by the end of it, before he got injured, he was on the first line, and that was when everyone was healthy. Like, he was keeping Galliano out of the lineup to start the year, and you're right, like he was insanely fast. Like, it was a tribute to his offseason approach and whatever they did working with him, because he was by far like the most improved player, when we didn't expect that he would be an offensive catalyst and anything like that. Like, it was wild to watch him. And he like shorthanded too. Like, he was very good shorthanded as well. The whole team has been great shorthanded, by the way. I would love to see how many shorthanded goals and power play goals they have, because I bet it's not that far out of reach.
They call it the power kill.
The power kill, exactly. But correct me if I'm wrong, is he an overager this year or next year?
Podolou?
Mm-hmm. He's an 04.
04?
03 is this year.
03 is this year, yep. So 04, yeah, Podolou's an 08.
We have a couple, I believe, just off the top of my head, we have a couple 03s, or a couple 04s next year. So it'll be interesting what they do with the overagers. But a healthy Podolou, it would be just kind of, I like, the lineup is going to be hard next year, because Gallianov is going to go, he's only older and bigger, Zada as well, Robrick, you've got Bryant. Like, it looks like things are coming together, which is exciting. And Podolou adds a very unique aspect to it if he can come back healthy.
We're going to end off today with our Inside the Coaches Room with the IceDogs head coach, Ben Boudreau, and that is brought to you by Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road in Niagara since 2012 in honor of the late William Robert Hunter. Here is IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau and his honest comments about the team's 4-game week. Coach, great start to the week. 2 wins, a little bit of flounder the last couple of games, scored 10 goals in the first 2 and then only 1 in the next 2. What do you think really turned from the first half of the week to the second week? Obviously, you're playing a couple of good teams and Oshawa in a rematch, so where do you think things kind of turned in the opposition's favor?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at our 2 opponents, I mean, both Brantford and both Oshawa are 2 really goods on the defensive side. I mean, they're big, strong, mobile. It's tough to get to the inside, and I thought they defended extremely well. Obviously, Niagara's history against Hamilton and Brantford, both the same organization, is well documented, and still find a way to crack that egg. So I think the big thing for us is we didn't have enough jam or gusto to get to those second chance opportunities where we stayed perimeter hockey, and we won the first 2 games and thought it might be a little bit easy, which wasn't the case. So we found out the hard way what it's like to play 2 hard teams and what it takes to actually win.
And the power play 0 for 13 this week in general. You put 5 forwards out there to try to change things up, and it backfired with the shorthanded goal. And then you sent a message with putting some of your bottom end players out there. Was that a kind of response from what you didn't like from the top unit as far as what you saw on that on that sequence?
Yeah, we're not getting the job done. I mean, we still have yet to find somebody that can move the puck and find it through lanes. And our top guys on the power play, I mean, we just got outworked. And when that's an opportunity that you can't get outworked, and if you're going to get outworked, I'll put out the guys that don't get those opportunities. I thought they worked the opposition better than our power play guys and actually generated a couple chances. So I really lament having that be so unsuccessful. It drives me up the wall when I see it, and the lack of success that we have. But to get scored on is just there's no reason for that. So we took the opportunity away from our top guys. You're exactly right to send a message.
And the big guys got off to a hot start with Gavin Bryan and Robrick and Kevin He, but then as the week went on, the scoring kind of went away. Is there something that you're looking to pinpoint or work on in practice to get ready for another week? You get a couple of days off here. You've been on of games in a short amount of time. So what's kind of the messages you kind of go into next week as trying to work on some of those things in practice?
No, I mean we didn't execute from any standpoint. I mean with the puck, I mean you see other teams make the plays. They don't bobble the puck and they play with speed. They drive the net. When you see them score goals, they all went in second chance opportunity goals, and they find a way to get lost, to play to the inside. And we played soft, and we were easy to play against. And we wanted it to come easy after the first weekend, and we got it absolutely handed it to us. And so, our players need to find a way to play with some grit and play with some heart. And when you stay on the outside, that's exactly what you're going to get. This soft team got soft results, and I really lament that, thinking it was going to come easy after 2 big wins.
Can you talk about the goaltending? Owen Flores was big early in the week, and a couple of those goals you really can't blame Charlie Robertson on today, and even Flores against Brantford. Just talk to what your goaltending keeping you in some of those games with a young roster.
I mean, the goalies played just absolutely great. I mean, Charlie, again, when you look at the goals, second chance, backdoor, one-timers, I mean, this is not the goalie's fault. I'm not going to once look up at this shot clock and say this is Charlie Robertson's fault. Our team completely let him down. We got outplayed in front of our net. We got outplayed in front of their net. And when you look at the results from the past 2 nights, we got exactly what we deserve. So there's no sugarcoating it. We're young and inexperienced. We got outplayed. We got outbattled. And we are an inferior team against these in these last couple of matches. So, I mean, there's no wondering where it went. That's exactly what happened. And until we get enough goal, until we're big enough and strong enough to play to the inside, those are the type of results that we're going to expect. But against Erie and against the first game in Oshawa, you saw the hits. You saw the willingness to score from the dirty areas. I mean, Rubrick scored from the goal line. Levin had a shot tip off his shin pads. I mean, Asadorian, like on break. I mean, these guys find a way to do it right, and then it works. And that's probably part of the reason that drives you nuts is when you see them have success like that, and then you wonder why we're not doing it on a nightly basis, because it feels great when you win and when you want to score. But that's what happens to be a really good hockey player. You need to be consistent in what you do, and that's one thing that we definitely lack is consistency in how we play.
Lastly, are you seeing any positive strides? You talk about the other teams that you're playing have those game breakers, have those NHL caliber players. Kevin's hopefully going to get drafted this summer and Robrick the year after, but right now you're just looking for, you know, a team effort. Bryant stepped up, but how do you kind of pinpoint with these guys as far as making sure that they know, like, we need the guys to step up here and have guys have the individual performances that you're seeing from these other teams that you're playing against with a lot of NHL talent?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it may be unfair to ask Robrick to carry the team every single night, or Kevin, you know, or Zada, or any of those guys, but that's the reality of the situation that we're in. I mean, you know, we don't have anybody else. There's no other heroes coming in to save us. If we're going to make a push, if we're going to be a good hockey team, we need our core guys to be our best players. And although it be young, that's who we're going to war with every single night. So, you know, the upbeat is you see the things in them. I mean, you know, Robrick obviously having 21 goals is incredible, which is tying Kevin He's record. And you see the things from Galley and Zada, and, you know, you're still waiting to see Frolov take that step. You know, I think he's lacked here some results on the statistical side, but he's got a lot of upside for a young defenseman at the same time. But right now, that's where we're at. We're young and inexperienced, and, you know, we're not as strong as those other teams. And when you see them really want to flex their muscles and win, as they're upset after we won in our home barn, I mean, they took it to us right from the get-go, scoring on the first shot of the game, and I think scoring on the last shot of the game at the same time here, too. So, I mean, they played 60 full minutes just like North Bay played pissed off against us when we beat them twice. So we've seen this now from a few teams. The way they respond is what you'd expect from an older, stronger team.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Talk again next week.
Thanks, Brandon.
There was IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau. Cam, we got about 5 minutes here to wrap up the show here, but some very candid thoughts there from the IceDogs head coach. And he has to be brutally honest with these guys and do it in a constructive way, because, again, we are dealing with a very young group here. But, you know, he was honest about the power play and the struggles there. He was honest about the compete level from some of his players in the last two games and what he liked in the first two that really changed in the last couple of games. And when he sent the message there, putting, you know, the Ray, Klein, and Stewart a line out there on the power play after they had given up the shorthanded goal in Oshawa, he's going to hold these players accountable and hold his best players accountable, because he knows and expects what they can bring here, and you know, he really just wants to make them better in doing so.
Yeah, and like I think that it's tough, because I feel like the players that on the power play know that regardless if the power play looks well or not, they need it to go in. And when it doesn't, maybe this is kind of an instance where, like we saw with Kevin at the beginning of the season, where expectations were so high on him that they're gripping the sticks a little bit. Like, I don't know how on the coaching side to make it, to alleviate that, and other than just shoot. And obviously that's not a great coaching strategy. Obviously that's why I'm not a coach, but it just, like, they just need a few to go in. And talking about the performance after the you know, they win a couple, when a team isn't used to winning, and over the course of the last two seasons they aren't used to winning, they don't know how to act. No, that's not fair to say. They're not. When you're in a winning streak, you win a couple in a row, right? It's just nature to lay off the gas a little bit, because you've got a couple wins. They have to be as absolutely hungry every single game, because there are talented teams. They have to outwork every team they play. And I think that's why we haven't seen a win streak of 4 or 5 games yet. It's because they win a couple and they think that, okay, we're winning now, this is good. But it's not like, we lose this, we might not make the playoffs. And the quotes from Ben Boudreau in the last interview that we had with him, definitely is starting to feel like, okay, the season's going on and whatever, but we're in the last few and the playoffs are still in question. And now you're seeing like we cannot, there's no more excuses. There's no more, we'll work on it. Like, you have to bury, you have to, and it's going to be very fun to watch how they react to that. And even if they don't win, as long as we see what we've seen the majority of the season, and that's a 1-goal loss where the entire game, they are giving it to every single top end team that they're going to play against. They've got a big game against Mississauga, you know, scoring a few against Linders, if he's the starter again, would go is a long way. They're going to have to work real hard. And even if they win 2, that's not enough. And I think that's what you're starting to see boil over a little bit, because they've got to get used to winning. Like the mentality of being, okay, we won a few, now we need to win more. It's not a kind of like we lost 6, now we won 2, and it's like, okay, we can chill for a little bit. It's not that, bro. It's like you got to go win the next 3 now, right? So it'll be interesting to watch, and I don't put it out of the possibility of them making the playoffs. It would still be an incredible comeback, and my favorite part of the whole thing would be people that follow the OHL refresh the standings and see the IceDogs in the playoffs and be like, what in the world is that? And that is what they should be using, because they've been an afterthought by every pundit that follows the league, all the other organizations. And if they ever get into that spot where, we saw it once this season, they were in the top 16 of the OHL power rankings, right? And it would just be so fun to watch the rest of the league be like, how did this happen? So.
And lastly, he talked about wanting those other guys to step up, and he said we can't expect Ryan and Kevin to carry the team on all nights. And I think that's kind of calling out the rest of his top 6 players there, and the rest of the lineup to say, okay, like everybody else needs to pull their part here. And again, he's very, he can be critical with Kevin and Ryan as well. But I don't think any player, no matter where you are in the lineup, the first forward or the 12th forward or the first D or the 6th D, it is. We even saw Owen Flores. Everybody on this team is not exempt from criticism at times when they need it, and I think that's what Ben Boudreau's biggest message is. He raved about the goaltending this week and talked about it wasn't Charlie Robertson's fault at all with some of those backdoor tap-ins and 2-on-0s and just things that the team would just kind of gave up there. But I just like to see that he's trying to hold every single person accountable on this team, and knowing that what you just said, that it's not acceptable that they're not in a playoff race. So the fact that they're around this right now, and he just expects so much more out of them, and you see that the way that they're kind of have to respond to this moving forward, because we saw how they responded after losing the northern road trip. They came back with 2 big wins, but now they're coming off 2 pretty tough losses. So I'll give you final thoughts here, how you kind of want to, or I guess expect them to respond here against Mississauga and Kingston this week.
I think personally as a fan, like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier on, if they can get to that Barrie game on March 17th and they're not eliminated, that would be a massive thing for the fan base, for the players, knowing that I just don't want to see them eliminated. And even if they do, let's say they get eliminated from the playoff contention, I want to see how they play during those games where it's on the cusp. And I think that's going to go a long way to kind of see what the team is going to be like going into next year and the compete and fight they have. And we've seen it all year that they have they're unbelievable at that. So I also want them to have some fun, the fact that they're in a playoff race, they battled for it. They deserved, they have 6 more points than all of last year with 13 games to go. Even if they win 4 games, that's almost a 20-point increase, right?
The young energy that they brought in.
Yeah, exactly. They earned the spot to be here because they battle so much harder. They traded away, as they should have, Sobolev and Ride and Lavoie, and while they did get Chanowski and Ray back and Robertson, which helps, it's not the same level of what they sent out, right? And they're still in a playoff spot, because that all intents and purposes, the trade deadline could have been all right, well, we gave it our shot this year, and it's not the case. So I just want to see some good games, and even if they lose them, go down swinging, and I think we will see that.
Well, we'll see what what comes up this week with Mississauga, who they've struggled against with Ryerson Leaders. Hope they can put up some goals in their final trip to the Paramount 5 Food Center with the Mississauga Steelheads before they become the Brantford Steelheads next season. And we will have a game recap with Cam this upcoming Friday against the Kingston Frontenac. So stay tuned for that on Sunday as we recap the IceDogs. Hopefully 2 points against the Kingston Frontenac. So that's going to wrap up another in-depth episode of the Dog Pound Podcast. Proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of the great Niagara region locations. For Cam Halbert, my name is Brandon Caputo, signing off here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, and we'll talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.